It's election season, and here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we're going to go to the polls on November 2nd and elect our next statewide officers, from governor, lieutenant governor, to attorney general, to every single delegate in the House of Representatives. But who will we vote for? What are the issues? And why is it important to vote today? It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and we'll be right back. This is Save the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you so much for joining us here on WNSB on the campus of Norfolk State University, the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA. Here, I don't know about you, but we're thoroughly enjoying being back here on the campus, thoroughly enjoying the opening up of the university and across the city in the Commonwealth. So when we talk about, turning the corner, I see that we're doing that, but I want us to continue to be vigilant, continue to make sure that you keep your health and your safety number one. Also, we'd like to thank all of you for your support of WNSB. We just finished our fall membership drive. I believe that we may be setting records for that, but you can still donate. Feel free, go to at hot91online.org and you can donate and give whatever you can, because this station is all about you, the listener. So without you, there would be no WNSB. And again, I have to say it all the time, Marvin, I have to thank all of the Spartan Nation of the Norfolk State University. And that's right. And Barbara just stated, and I just want to say that we're going to even thank you even more for this week coming up, because it's homecoming. That's right. Homecoming week here on the campus is our opportunity to come back, reconnect with old friends, professors, come back to the campus to see the great improvements that we've made, the state-of-the-art buildings, to learn about the vision of our leader, Dr. Javon Adams-Gasson, the 7th president here at the Norfolk State University. Listen, this is going to be an epic homecoming. It's going to be a phenomenal. It's going to be a safe one, too. And it's going to be one that we're going to remember for years to come, because it's our time, our mission, our vision as we move forward. So, again, come back. Homecoming, it starts actually today. It starts today. And of course, the parade, we're having activities all the way through the week. The parade on Saturday at 8 o'clock, and then the game. And how about that football team, right? Coach Odom, I'm telling you, he has really come and made an impact immediately. And we're excited for the great things that he's doing and doing across the board. And all Spartans are doing it. And Marvin, I'd like to take just a few moments at the beginning of every show just to talk about the great things that our Spartan Nation is doing, because, it's a gem here in the Commonwealth, a gem in the city, and really a gem across the country and the world. So again, thank you so much for your support of Stay the Water, WNSB, and all that you do for Spartan Nation. But every year, we hold our candidate for a conversation with the candidate series, because here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's, we have an important election every single year. And I say it's important because, as we talk about on this show, elections is your opportunity in order for you to give your voice for the issues, the policy, and the people who are representing you in statewide office, that's representing you in Congress, national office, and also representing you locally. I know a lot of times, we don't think about local elections, but local elections do matter, from city council to school board and the like. As a matter of fact, in the first half of the show, we have a city council member who's running for Super Ward 7. We have 6 candidates. We've reached out to all of them. We have one coming on this week, today, and others who are coming on throughout this series, and to talk about why you should vote for them, the issues facing our city here in Super Ward 7. Also, in the second half of the show, we have one of our delegates, Delegate Jay Jones, representing District 89, who's going to talk about why it's important to really vote in this election, what's at stake on the state level, and give us some updates about his district and also his race. But also, I'd like to talk about this past Thursday. Norfolk State University partnered with Wavy TV 10, our media partner, to host the only statewide gubernatorial roundtable. It aired on this past Thursday at 7 o'clock prime time, and it featured Andy Fox and Anita Blanton as moderators, where they talk with both candidates, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican candidate, and former Governor Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic candidate, on why we should vote for them and what are the major issues facing Virginians today. Now, keep in mind, these candidates only held 2 debates, and they only held one roundtable. And that roundtable was the Norfolk State partnership with Wavy Roundtable. So once again, Norfolk State University on the cutting edge, Norfolk State University in the forefront, Norfolk State University making sure that the voices of our stakeholders and our people, our constituents, the city and the state are heard to discuss important issues that matter to you. So I want you to go back. You can go to wavy.com or you can go to nsu.edu and you can go to our social media or Wavy social media. You can click on that and you can view the roundtable in its entirety, or you can take a listen to certain clips from it. Your very own, I was able to provide political analysis after the roundtable itself, which aired statewide as well. And one of our star students, Malik Watkins, who's a senior political science major, was able to ask a question to both candidates. And not only that, but they also featured 3 great stories about the university. One from our president, also one from our star researchers that's dealing with health inequities, Dr. Sharon Austin, and then one where I discussed the importance of voting and the partnership that we had with the League of Women Voters to discuss voting history, to discuss redistricting, and why it's important to get out there and vote. So go take a look, wavy.com, and also nsu.edu. Click on those links, and you can view all of it moving forward. But there's more to come with that as we continue to bring you discussions, roundtables, debates, and town halls with our policymakers and elected officials. So before we bring on our guest, who's a candidate who's running for city council, I want to talk about, again, making sure that you get out and make sure your voice is heard. Early voting has started. That's right. You can go vote every single day of the week right now. You can vote on Sunday, today, at your local voter registration office. And you can vote. It started Friday, September 17th. You can go out and continue to vote all the way up to the last Sunday in October. That's October 31st. But don't wait till the last minute. But you can go out and vote. But the general election is also on November 2nd. And November 2nd is when you can go vote for every single candidate that's running on the ballot for statewide office for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and the delegates who are running across the state. And not only that, but also your local city council. And with that, we have our guest. I'd like you to welcome one of the candidates who are running for Super Ward 7, Jackie Glass. Ms. Glass, thank you so much for joining us here on State of the Water.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Claville.
Absolutely. Well, Ms. Glass, you are a mother, you're a Navy veteran, you're what you call a certified doer that wants to run to represent Super Ward 7 in the city of Norfolk. Now, you and I had the opportunity to dialogue for a forum that I moderated, which you attended and all the other candidates attended, that was sponsored by the Alpha Phi Alpha and Alpha Kappa Alpha chapters of Norfolk here. And we had an opportunity to really engage and talk about your passion and to discuss why you want to run and why you want to represent Super Ward 7. And I want to give you and the other candidates that do accept the opportunity to tell us what made you throw your hat in the ring to be the next city councilwoman.
Mm-hmm. Well, every time we get that question, I say, my goodness, there are so many things. I actually ran in 2018 for school board, and I promise you, Dr. Claville, I thought that I would not be running again until my children were old or even thinking about it because it's hard work. I decided to run. COVID really shifted some things for me, really wholeheartedly. During the pandemic, we had an election at the very beginning, that May of 2020. I was in the process of developing plans to get people to be able to vote safely. And I remember just trying to work with my local leaders and just being met with resistance over something. I felt like everyone should have an equal opportunity to democratic process, but also safe way. And then I brought, a program that is now in play, thank goodness, that is now in play for childcare entrepreneurship. And I was met with a lot of resistance. And so I started thinking about everyday people like me that want to solve problems with our local leadership, right? We know that being included in the democratic process or the civic process, it bolsters innovation and creativity. And because I wasn't the first and I wouldn't be the last, I said, I think it's time that we get some folks to the table, not just myself, but other folks really engaged. And it starts with this. It starts with running. So I'm running because I truly just feel like I'm a critical thinker. I am a student and an educator of the community. And I believe that not just my presence, but those who have been doing great work with me and the local government, it's time for us to sort of be more a part of that process and spread the good work that we've been trying to do.
So, it's interesting that you mentioned that you ran for one seat on the school board and you figured, hey, maybe I'll try this again later. But there was something that pulled you to this particular race. Now, we do know that this seat was left open due to the former city councilwoman, Councilwoman Graves, who now is the new Delegate Graves. And Danica Worcester was appointed for that particular seat for that time period that was left. So she's currently the city councilwoman in Super Ward 7. But you say you wanted to come back in because there were some things that you wanted to do to improve here in the city of Norfolk. Tell us about your agenda and what you feel that you want to do for the people in Norfolk.
Well, the thing about it is it truly isn't just about what I want to do. It's about what we can do together. Mm-hmm. I am wholeheartedly, unabashedly a candidate that is really working for women and families. Women particularly we're less than 50% of the population here in the city of Norfolk, but we're over 51% of the working population. And what I've seen is women have held this city down for the past 18 months plus and are continuing to do that, whether it's educational jobs or whether it's the service industry. So my goal over this is 2 years, right? We're asking what can you get done in 2 years here? I want to expand the child care entrepreneurship pilot program that I developed for the city of Norfolk, which is actually the first piece of legislation that Delegate Graves was able to bring to the House of Delegates so that we can govern and license. Norfolk will be the first city in the state of the Commonwealth of Virginia to be able to license your home child care, because I not just want women to have liberation by being able to go back out into the workforce and do the things that they desire to do, right, but also become small business owners, because I think there's a unhealthy level of disrespect for child care providers, right? You're not just watching kids, you are a small business owner. Another thing that I feel very strongly about that will help communities overall is simply not being a single point of failure. It is a piece specifically for the Black community. I feel like we're in a position to not only educate, but to advocate and also celebrate the community here, because there's so much to do. So the one single point of failure piece, I think, is teaching folks that you don't have to call the mayor to get a stop sign. I mean, and that's some folks' reality, that there are systems in place that there are people that are folks that are working within this local government, the employees that really that want to be used. They're there. We pay a lot of money for these great resources, but they end up not being used. So I think there's a piece of getting door to door, which is something I'm so grateful the volunteers on the campaign have been doing. We've been getting folks to download the My Norfolk app. And I'm going to say anybody within the sound of my voice that doesn't have it on their phone, you need to download the My Norfolk app. Because it's amazing. You see things get done. I've had folks call and say, I didn't even know I could get them to do that quick. And it happened. Yes. Because that gets us to a place where people tend to trust our local governance a little bit more, which I think that's something that's fractured. So my goal here, again, and then is to celebrate. Each community is so unique, and we need to celebrate through policy, through having great working relationships when developers come into our communities, and developing things like community benefit agreements so that the community has a space at the table when we have people coming into our communities to do work, that we're able to say what amenities contractually will happen, that we can reach for Pluto, and if we get the moon, we're able to dream big about what we wanted for our communities. I just see this, Dr. Claville, as an opportunity to bring someone to the table that has a healthy level of respect for the fact that we have 5 generations of voters going to the voting booth. However, the decisions that we make are going to affect 7 to 8 generations of folks. I do not take that lightly. I lead from a place of empathy, and I'm just wholeheartedly, hopefully, ready to do the work with the residents of Norfolk.
Absolutely. When you talk about Super Ward 7, I mean, it's a very interesting part of the city because it's a part of the city that's historical. It's a part of the city that has challenges, but it's a part of the city that also has a lot of potential. What are some of the issues that you see specifically in Super Ward 7, and what is your plan to impact those issues?
Yeah, so I one thing that I plan on doing once this race is over is really delving into those census statistics there for 2020. But I'll tell you, based off the 2010 census, Super Ward 7 is overwhelmingly Black, renting, young families. The average age over here is 31. And when I hear the word, Black, renting, young families, the first thing that comes to mind is particularly evictions. And unfortunately, in our city, 94% of the homelessness that we see is due to evictions. And so looking at that as the single stabilizer for many of the families that are here, we've got to do something about the eviction process. What I would love to see happen is a housing resource and diversionary court. This is something that's already being done in the city of Nashville, where we interject ourselves into the eviction process with resources. Because oftentimes, I'll tell you, many of the folks showing up to court do not have representation, and we don't have the Commonwealth isn't set up for us to do universal representation, meaning we can't ensure that everyone has a lawyer. But what we can do is bring programs like HomeNet to the courtroom. And I don't know if you've ever heard of HomeNet, but this is an amazing resource that helps folks with buying houses, with qualifying themselves, and gets them upwards to $30,000 to $40,000 for a down payment for a home.
Absolutely.
We have to put, and it's funny because I've been working with not just Black residents already on this particular program, but with Black realtors who have no idea, didn't even know this resource was out there. So if I'm looking at one of the single greatest things that we can do is we've got to build a relationship with our judicial system, with how we work with folks like the Southern Poverty Law Center, how we work with legal aid, and how we put ourselves, and we've even studied this. I've sat in housing court now in Norfolk, and I will tell you there's 100 cases an hour, and there's no way that 100 cases are going to happen an hour, so we are counting on people not to show up, which is, again, exacerbating some of the issues that we have for Black residents in Norfolk, whether it's education, a roof over their head, food. This is one of the single greatest things that I think we can affect. And we're already working on it, Dr. Claville. I'm on the city's eviction. We're working with the city's eviction mitigation team. And the one thing that I brought to the table was residents because they were not there.
Absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned housing because with economic development, which is part of your platform, when you increase housing ownership, you increase the wealth of every generation, you increase the value of the area, and you overall increase the value of the city. So Absolutely. By just impacting that aspect of Super Ward 7 or that particular area, I mean, it raises all boats. That's what we talk about in raising all boats, right?
Yeah. It has to be a targeted approach, Dr. Claville, because if we look at the study that Richmond did, Eviction Lab did a study a little while back, and what they said is if you live in the Lindenwood area and Barad Park area and you are a homeowner, you are 4 times more likely to lose your home to foreclosures than anywhere else in the country. Wow. Right? And then we look at other neighborhoods like Foxhall, neighborhoods right outside of Military Circle that have an extremely over 50% eviction rate. We can be targeted with what we do, right? That's what I'm talking about, is we've got to know our communities and sometimes it's not a broad stroke. Sometimes we got to get the pencil out and go exactly to the root and knock some doors and bring the resources to people's front door, which is something, again, we're already doing. I just want to be able to expand the work that we're doing with the community.
Absolutely. Just for a few moments, on your campaign website, and I want you to give us more information where we can find information about you in just a moment, but I want you to talk about what is anti-ism Norfolk.
So anti-ism Norfolk, my background is in I have a degree in workforce education and training and development, but I started a small business back in 2018 where I work with, governments, organizations, and nonprofits on looking at their policies and practices to pull out where they have racism, sexism, classism, ableism, and other things like that, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what I mean by anti-ism Norfolk, I mean we have to work on policy that makes us not able, project or exacerbate something like ableism. What I mean by that is, where is there housing for some of our folks that may have some physical or cognitive disabilities to independently live? How do our folks that are deaf get access to, or hearing impaired get access to city council meetings, right? So, how do we govern and truly, and also, I believe who's going to save us on this, that's going to push the bar forward is our youth, because they are hyper aware, at least from what I see in our community, hyper aware of inclusion and what that means and what it truly looks like. So how do we get ourselves to a point where we're not just saying we don't promote sexism, we don't promote racism, but we have the policies and the practices in place that said we are totally anti, and you can see it in the work. And we've got work to do. We can start by, updating our charters so they don't say he when you see the mayor as they, or that they, you know what I'm saying, these little things that we can do to be a more inclusive government. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Everyone, that is Jackie Glass, who's running for Super Ward 7 to be the next city councilwoman for that particular ward. You can vote again on November 2nd, or you can start voting now. Early voting has started. Ms. Glass, if you could, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us here on State of Water. We have other candidates who are running for that same seat who will be joining us throughout the week to talk about their platform as well. But I want you to give the listeners information where they can find more about your platform and how they can contact you.
Happy. Thank you again, Dr. Claville. The website you can go to is Jackie, that's JACKIE, 4, Norfolk.com. We're on all the social medias at that same Jackie, 4, Norfolk. And then you can always email me at Jackie at Jackie4Norfolk.com. I'm accessible. So thank you so much. And I'll even give out, because I recognize we have folks that do not do email. So right. I'm going to give out my business phone number. You can contact me at 757-797-5734. And I'm going to say that one more time. 757-797-5734. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
No, thank you so much, and good luck to you in this upcoming election.
Thank you, Dr. Claville.
So once again, that was Jackie Glass, who's running for Councilwoman for Super Ward 7, the seat that is currently held by Danica Royster, and also once held by now Delegate Graves. When we talk about all politics is local, Marvin, it's that really explains it. The discussion that we just had, talking about not just the historical aspect of areas, but really delving into, what are some of the issues that are affecting them, and how, if we target those issues, then how we can truly impact people's lives on a everyday level, but not just on the everyday, but their generations. Home ownership does that. It raises the value of your community. It raises the value of your portfolio, your wealth portfolio. The schools raise the value of the schools that are there. Everybody benefits. Every single body benefits. So, when we talk about Super Ward 7, we're looking at areas like Norview. We're looking at Ballantyne. We're looking at Barron Black, Lake Taylor High School, right? What's that? Bar Place. Yeah, exactly. Broad Creek, Lambert's Point, Park Place, Titustown, Wesley, Rosemont, Lafayette, Winona, Sherwood. These are places that when we talk about people who grew up in Norfolk, that are from the city of Norfolk, these are intertwined, with the fabric of the city, with their experience and so forth. So this is a very important race. Of course, every race is very important, but more specifically, as we talk about the African-American community, predominantly African-American community, when we talk about our HBCU here, the largest HBCU in the state, Super Ward 7 is extremely important. But once again, this is an election where we have 6 candidates who are running for this seat. The seat currently held by the Honorable Danica Royster. Also, we have, once again, Jackie Glass, who's vying for that seat. We have Jason Inga, who's going to join us next week. We have Mr. Muhammad, who's also running for the seat, Fred McRae, who's running for the seat, and Philip Hawkins Jr. So all these, we've reached out to all of them to join us here on Save the Water to talk about their platform and the issues that they see and how they can affect the city overall. Yeah, and again, you can go view, if you can't, you can view their platform on the forum that we held, again, in partnership where I moderated with the Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and the Sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated here in the chapters of the city of Norfolk. Go to their Facebook page. It's there. And Anita Blanton also moderated the second piece of that town hall where she talked with all of the candidates who are running for statewide office, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. So again, great times. This is a phenomenal time. I love it. It's politics, it's policy. But I want you to stay tuned because in the second half hour, we have Delegate Jay Jones, and we're going to talk about why it's important to vote this election season and the issues on the state level. This is State of Water. I'm Dr. Eric Claville. We'll be back in just a moment.
Your mental health is very important. During the pandemic, your life was changed at the blink of an eye. Everything you know to be normal was no longer normal. The sudden changes can be strenuous on your mental health. Your mental health is everything to you and the people around you. If you're feeling uneasy, unsure, and don't know which way to turn, seek professional advice. There is no shame in taking care of your mental health.
This Save a Life campaign message has been brought to you by the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, Black Public Radio, and WNSP Hot 91, the soul of VA. Join Norfolk State University for Homecoming 2021 as the Spartans host Virginia University of Lynchburg at 2 p.m. on Saturday, October 16th at Dick Price Stadium. Fans must show proof of vaccination or have a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours of any on-campus event during homecoming week, including the game and tailgating. Tickets may be purchased at NSUSpartanTickets.com. If you can't attend, listen to the game on WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. Behold the green and gold.
Welcome back. This is Save the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. Thank you again for joining us for the second half hour of our Conversation with the Candidate series. Here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have an election every year, and an important election every year. And this election in 2021, on November 2nd, is not just important to the Commonwealth, but it's also important to the country. This is the first statewide election for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general for the entire state, the entire country after the 2020 election. And the implications of that are immeasurable. And our next guest, he's going to talk more about the implications of that and the important issues here in the state and give us an update on his race. This is Delegate Jay Jones, delegate of the 89th District. Welcome to State of Water. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, I want to remind our listeners that, we had you on before during the primary in which you ran for the candidacy to represent the Democratic Party for Attorney General. Of course, that race turned out where it was a great showing. And now we have current Attorney General Mark Herring, who's representing the Democratic Party against Jason Myers in the general election here on November 2nd. And our listeners had a great opportunity to talk with you and hear about the issues and the platform and your passion for wanting to represent the citizens of the Commonwealth on a statewide level. But you're still delegate. You're representing here the district located in the city of Norfolk, and it's still an important job. And we want to learn more about, what the update on your race, your district, and we'll talk more about the importance of voting in this election. So tell us what's going on now in your district.
Well, look, thank you again for having me. And you're right, it's been a few months since I joined you under different circumstances, but I am still the delegate for the 89th District, and I am seeking re-election to what would be my third term. It is incredible how time flies. I was elected back in 2017 in what folks call a wave election. We got 15 Democratic pickups and then took back the General Assembly in 2019. And now we are looking to build upon that progress. In the 89th District, which is wholly encompassed within the city of Norfolk, the southern and western parts of the city. So think about from Old Dominion over to Norfolk State and over to the south side, and everything in between is the 89th. We've got some critical issues at hand. Obviously, justice reform has been a place that I have focused on for quite some time. That was the pillar of my candidacy for Attorney General, but it remains a focus of mine in the House of Delegates. Fighting climate change. I was actually just driving down Hampton Boulevard, and it is flooded out over there.
Yeah.
It rained a little bit today, but certainly that happens on sunny days, too. That's a real issue for us here in Norfolk about our long-term viability and sustainability here in the Commonwealth to make sure that we have the resources to fight against that sort of creeping problem that's becoming more and more pressing every single day. And what I believe is the biggest issue as we emerge from this pandemic is affordable housing and housing security and making sure that our residents can have shelter, have a roof over their head. They don't have to pay an arm and a leg to do so, and that they've got those basic human needs that folks deserve as we sort of move through this most unprecedented health crisis that we've ever seen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the issue that you mentioned in the 89th District, and of course, it covers two of the major institutions of higher education in this region and in the Commonwealth. And as you stated, everywhere in between, there are issues, but it's also an area that encompasses a lot of promise. An area that really, as I mentioned, the two universities, of course, it has two radio stations in that district as well with WHRO and then us at WNSB. I mean, there's just so much there that, we can not just change the city, but really you have an opportunity in this district to really forge a new path for the state.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I have said that this is probably one of the most diverse districts in the state. We've got black and white, wealthy and working class, old and young institutions of higher education. We've got everything downtown Norfolk. It really is a sort of interesting cross-section, and so it's never lost on me the decisions that are made in Richmond, have a wide-ranging impact on this district in particular, and it's always been important for me that we have a voice who can reflect and represent all of those different cross-sections. But I do think that we have more in common than we don't, and I think everybody here in Norfolk in particular will say, yes, we want a strong education system. Yes, we want housing for everybody so that no one is left out in the cold during the most challenging of times. Yes, people want health care and they want affordable health care. And yeah, we want to make sure that our justice system is treating everybody fairly. Those are the things that I think unite us and is a sort of a common thread that sort of weaves through all of us.
Absolutely. And again, while running for the delegate seat, I mean, you were very active across the state, extremely active, as you mentioned, in the issues that you're targeted in, but also, in the party, the Democratic Party, and the issues really affecting the state. And I mentioned earlier, the importance of this election. And I know that sometimes we can get election fatigue and campaign fatigue, but this election is extremely important, not just for the Commonwealth, but for the country. Can you tell us more from your perspective why this election is important?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I think there is this narrative that people have picked up and run with, although I don't think it's actually true, is that we've got voter fatigue. In Virginia, we vote every single year. We vote every June. We vote every November because our state elections are in an off year and our federal elections are on the even year. And this is that first election after the presidential. Obviously, turnout will not be nearly as high as it was for that. That is always the case. Last year, I think we were at 80-something% turnout in Virginia. We will see a little bit of a drop-off. However, what I like to think, and I hope and I see, is that we have voter socialization. So people know that they've got to get up and go vote because these elections are what influences our lives and impacts our lives on a day-to-day basis. Education, transportation, the justice system, healthcare, all of those things are done at the state level, and that's why folks know and need to know why these elections are so important. But I reject that notion that folks are tired, that folks are wary, folks are complacent. I think you see a very spirited debate on both sides, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent. You've got choices, and that's a good thing. I think almost every House of Delegates race across the state is contested. I think competition is healthy because it forces us to really go out and share our vision and share our ideals and our passions with the people that we seek to represent. And so it's really on us as candidates and elected officials to go meet people where they are, to roll up your sleeves and really go and work for them and show them how you will deliver on those things that you hope to do in office.
Absolutely. Last week we had your colleague and my good friend, Delegate Cliff Hayes, on to talk about, what happened and the gains when the legislature became blue and the governor's mansion was blue. Tell us some of the from your perspective, what were some of the great gains that we saw in the historical legislative session just several years ago? And then what's at stake now in the event that it turns?
Well, we've done so much over the last 4 years, it's almost hard to keep up. But, the thing that's most important that I always talk about is Medicaid expansion. Over 500,000 Virginians are now eligible for health care coverage here in the Commonwealth that they wouldn't have had before. We passed the Virginia Voting Rights Act, which was historic. It is a state analogy to the federal Voting Rights Act. So now we have expanded access to the ballot box. People can vote early, 45 days before the election. So everybody who's listening, you can go vote right now. That's really, really important, especially as a black person who has ancestors who were denied the right to vote, had that abridged. Certainly something very, very special. We've reinvented our transportation system, the way that we fund that. We have done so many things on the criminal justice front. I can't even begin to talk about them. Raising the felony larceny threshold from $200 now to $500 and now to $1,000. That is incredible in and of itself. All of these things. That's what's at stake, because if we go backward, I think that the people on the other side of the aisle, I'll tell you, they want to take us back to the dark ages. They want to take us back to a Virginia that does not reflect who we are today and what we value. And that's why it's so important for people to understand why these elections are important, why they've got to go out and make their voice heard.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Voting Rights, Act of the Virginia Voting Rights Act. And, I did a series on this show where we looked at a tale of two states, the former Confederate states. We looked at the Commonwealth of Virginia and Georgia, and how those two states are going in opposite directions, where Georgia is restricting access to the ballot box and the Commonwealth is increasing access to the ballot box. And you mentioned how you can go vote now. Of course, early voting to our listeners started Friday, September 17th. You can vote now, even on Sundays. You can vote on Saturdays, the last Saturday leading up to the election. You can vote all the way up to October 31st. And the general election is November 2nd, just in case you miss it. So what would be the effect of turning back the clock, as you stated earlier, on access to the voting ballot?
Turning back the clock isn't an option. Frankly, I've lived through some incredible changes here in the Commonwealth, and we've seen a lot in this country, whether it's George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, that really put the plight of Black Americans into the forefront. The Republican Party in Virginia, they make no secret about it. They're sending racist mailers out against candidates in the Democratic Party all the time. They're sending anti-Semitic mailers. They come from a different place and they come from a different world, and they want to take us backward to a place where we are less than. They want to keep the economic opportunity from us. They want to confine us into our neighborhoods and not let us seek that sort of prosperity that we all deserve. And if you don't believe me, pick up a newspaper, go on social media, look at the television. They're not hiding who they are. They are the party of Donald Trump. He still looms large for them as a presence. Glenn Youngkin has been endorsed by Donald Trump, I think, 5 separate times now. So don't be fooled by his rhetoric that he rejects Donald Trump. He embraces the president, and I think Ralph Northam has been the most consequential governor that we have ever seen in this Commonwealth. And Terry McAuliffe, our former governor, who is seeking to be our next governor, will continue the legacy of Governor Northam and this Democratic legislature that has brought so much change to the Commonwealth. We're so fortunate to have a Democratic majority of 55 and a 21-seat majority in the Senate because we were able to impact change here and affect change here in the Commonwealth that we had not seen for decades. It was pent up and it was long overdue. It certainly is shocking to me the restrictive measures that were on the books to prevent folks from voting, the difficulties folks had in terms of access to capital, the ability or inability for folks to have a transportation system that works. We fixed all that, and we want to make sure that we continue to build, we continue to move in the right direction, and not go backward to a place that is in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. I'm sure some people listening remember the transvaginal ultrasound. That was just a decade ago. That wasn't that long ago here in Virginia. As we see abortion rights coming under attack in Texas and all across the country, so it's important for folks to know what's at stake, what's on the line. That the Democratic Party, that all of our candidates will be those stewards of positive change and of communities that have often been left behind or left out or forgotten.
Yeah. Delegate Jones, when in voting strategy, there's always the talk of the down ballot. Of course, we got the big candidates at the top, but then voting down ballot. You know that this past Thursday, Norfolk State University partnered with Wavy 10 and Nexstar in order to host the only statewide gubernatorial roundtable, which aired last Thursday. You can view it on wavy.com or nsu.edu. And there were very tough questions that were asked to both candidates, and both candidates really discussed why they believe their stances are best for the Commonwealth of Virginia. When we talk about the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, and then voting, and then yourself here in the 89th, when the citizens of Norfolk will go to the polls, tell us what are the strengths of voting for the gubernatorial, the attorney general, lieutenant governor candidates that are right above you?
Well, we are fortunate, I guess, in one way to look at it, or it's unfortunate in another, that we vote all the time here in the Commonwealth. But to be able to vote for a governor, to vote for lieutenant governor, to vote for attorney general, it's a ticket, but you vote for them individually in addition to the House of Delegates races. That's a special thing. Again, voting is what I believe to be our most sacred right, and we've got to get up and go exercise that at every opportunity that we can. But you can't just vote for at the top of the ticket. Those down ballot offices are really important. The lieutenant governor breaks ties in the event of that happening in the Senate, and so that's a crucial swing vote. The attorney general, obviously an incredibly powerful office from a consumer protection standpoint, a justice reform standpoint. We want to have someone in that office who's going to protect people and who's going to fight for our rights that we are owed or that are due and just. And then the House of Delegates, really one chamber of the General Assembly, really does impact things on a daily basis, on a micro level, that we hit every single day, whether it's education, your K through 12 elementary school systems, your higher education systems, your justice system, your transportation system, your tax system. All of that comes through the legislature. So it's really important that folks go vote, but not only vote for governor, but also for lieutenant governor, attorney general, and then even in Norfolk, we've got our local offices on the ballot too, commissioner of the revenue, treasurer, Commonwealth's attorney, and sheriff. And so those are also, the constitutional offices are very, very important. And we also have a special election for a super ward too. So we've got a lot going on here in Norfolk, but across the state, everybody has the opportunity to go vote for their House of Delegates members and their statewide offices. Absolutely.
Once again, you can go vote. November 2nd is the general election. You can vote on that day, but early voting has started now. You can go to the voter registration office in your area here in the city of Norfolk. You can vote while they're open. You can vote on, and also on Sunday. And then you can vote on Saturday leading up to the election. You can vote up to October 31st. You can cast your vote. You don't have to wait now. Delegate Jones, before we go, I want you to talk about your grassroots project called Meet Our Moment. When we, of course, in politics, we see a lot of money coming into campaigns, and we see ads that are floating around and mailers. But I believe that grassroots is the way to really impact change. As a former grassroots organizer, I believe that one knock at the door could change the world, right? Tell us about this grassroots project that you have, and what do you look to accomplish?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. And I'm really excited about Meet Our Moment. It is an organization that is aimed to recruit and train minority candidates all across the state to run for and win elected office at the state and local level. I think we have an underrepresented population in those offices, and we know how important they are. But there are oftentimes too many barriers for folks to want to even get in the game because they don't know how to fundraise. They don't know how to build a campaign. They don't know how to execute a strategy. And this program is free. Anyone can come to one of our quarterly sessions. We'll offer them once a quarter, and we'll do them in different parts of the state. And it's just one day. It's just 6 hours, 8 hours, where you basically go through a candidate boot camp about how this stuff works, how you start the process, talking to your employer, talking to your family to see if it's even something that you want to do or can do. How do you raise money? How do you build out your field list? How do you hire staff? All of those things, I believe, and I've heard some folks all across the state now, people don't realize that. They don't know how to do that. But for me, I want to build Black political power. I want to build minority representation. And it's really easy, I think, for all people to talk about it. It's another thing for folks to do it. And so this project is aimed at executing on that, building up that bench behind us to come take my spot. I hope that someone will go through this program and say, hey, I want to run for the 89th district because we want as many people in the process as we possibly can. And I think this is the way to do it, and I'm so excited about it. And I'm glad you asked me about it today because the application is now live for our first session on December 11th. You can go to our website. That's meetourmoment.com. MEETOURMOENT. It will be in Richmond. That is a Saturday, December 11th session. So please go sign up. We'd love to have you. And again, it's free of charge, so you don't have to pay your own way. You don't have to pay for food. All you have to do is show up.
Absolutely phenomenal. And it's just not training, but you're going to get just hands-on experience with people that are actually doing the job now. I mean, I took a look at your advisory board and some of the members that are there. Can you talk about some of the delegates who are joining you on that advisory board?
Yeah, Delegate Lasseries Aird from Petersburg, Delegate Jeff Bourne from Richmond, Delegate Josh Cole from Stafford, Sean Perryman, who was a candidate for lieutenant governor the last primary cycle, Vice Mayor of Martinsville, Jennifer Bold. These are young Black folks who care about getting more people into the arena. I think for so long there has been that mentality that has been put on Black politicians that there can only be one, that only one of us can succeed, and that if one of us is succeeding, it's at the expense of others. None of us believe that. We believe that the more people we have at the table, the more powerful we can be. And so the training session, you'll hear from not just me and the advisory board, but consultants, right, staff members who have worked for candidates of color. I think it's really important to hear from folks who have experience running campaigns and working on our campaigns, because it's different. We're held to a different standard. How do we interact with the media? How do we interact with donors? How do we interact with the party infrastructure, per se? And then at the end of each session, we're going to have a sort of question and answer sort of panel. I'm going to moderate it, and it's going to be a very open and unvarnished opportunity for folks to hear from elected officials at the state and local level about what it's like and how they got into politics and what their tips of the trade may be, so that we can get this thing done.
Absolutely phenomenal. And that's meetourmoment.com, meetourmoment.com. That is Delegate Jay Jones' Grassroots Project in order to increase representation of Black elected officials from a grassroots perspective in not just on the city level, local level, but also on the state level and hopefully on the national level as well. Delegate Jones, tell our listeners where they can find more about your platform and your campaign.
Yeah, you can always go to my website, jayjones.com, JAYJONES. It's got all the information about where we are on the issues, how to contact us from a campaign perspective or a legislative perspective. And again, if you're interested in running for office, I encourage you to go to meetourmoment.com and sign up. Our first session will be December 11th in Richmond. It's going to be an incredible day, and this is the first of what we hope to be many. And like you said, Doc, we want to scale this, not just in Virginia, but in states all across the country, because when there are more of us at the table, our power is infinitely larger and exponentially larger, and that's how we're going to really bring about that change that we seek in our communities and across this country.
Absolutely phenomenal. And look, we thank you for being such a good friend to Norfolk State University. Thank you for being
always.
Absolutely. And look, hopefully we can partner with this initiative because
absolutely.
Of course, the university is a great place to do that and get new and fresh talent. We got a lot of talent here at Norfolk State University, so this is phenomenal. Delegate Jones, again, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, listeners, you can go find out more about him at jjones.com. He is your delegate of the 89th District who's running for re-election. You can go take a look and cast your vote for him and on November 2nd. But if you can do it now. You can do it now. Vote early, vote often, take friends with you to the polls to go vote. Delegate Jones, thank you so much for joining us on Save the Water.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you guys. Talk soon.
All right. Once again, talking about and discussing issues that are really impacting us, not just on the local level, statewide, and on the national level. I'm glad, Marvin, he talked about, voter fatigue, right? Because it's kind of a myth. Because a lot of people are really excited to get out and not just vote, but vote to make sure that their voice is heard. Whatever side that you advocate for, right? So the power to vote is the power to get your voice out, the power for you to be heard, the power for you to ensure that the policies that you're living by and governed by every single day are the ones that you want to be governed by. Now we do see a lot of engagement now on school boards. Now, I will say that a lot of that engagement is not what I call civil engagement, right? But we see a lot of people being engaged over what's called dog whistles. But people are getting engaged. But we want to make sure that people are being engaged and listening to the right message. And when I say the right message, I mean the factual message. Exactly, not opinions. And that's what we strive here on this show, not to bring you, opinions, but to let you hear the facts, hear it from the individual's perspective, let you digest it, let you do your research, and then you make your decision. So hopefully that we, in this series of our conversations with the candidate, you're able to do that. Again, we've talked to delegates in the past couple of weeks. We've talked with city council candidates, and we will be talking with statewide candidates, both for governor, lieutenant governor, and also attorney general, on this show, just as we done for the primary, just as we did last year in November election, when we had the 2 U.S. Senate candidates that were running for office. So with that, we find that we're able to, listen to the issues and understand what the issues are, and with that, it helps you to make a better decision. As we have, this conversation with candidates, conversation with stakeholders, we believe that you're able, you're able, to make the decision for yourself. So before we go, we want to talk about, once again, where you can go vote, So we talked about the local election for Super Ward 7, the historical area here in the city of Norfolk, that encompasses, Norview, this area, and a lot of other areas that the fabric of the city of Norfolk is a part of. Lake Taylor High School area, Ballantyne, Broad Creek, Chesterfield, Easton, Berkeley, Lamberts Point, Norview. These are areas that are important to the city, important to the fabric, and we're going to elect the next city council person, which the seat is currently held by the Honorable Danica Royster. Not only that, but we also discuss why it's important to vote in a statewide election. Last week we had our alum here on the show, Delegate Cliff Hayes, that discussed, updates in his district, why it's important. And today we had Jay Jones, Delegate Jay Jones, discussing the same, why it's important to get out and vote, why the down ballot is important. He not only mentioned the city council, but he also mentioned the sheriff, the commissioners that we're voting for, treasurer, and the like. He's exactly right. It's important. So keep in mind, again, you can go out and vote. November 2nd is the election, but vote now. Go early vote. Make it a party. Make it an event. Call your friends. Take your family, those that can't get out and drive, those who are older. Make sure you go and take them as well. And when you do that, you're making sure that your family voice is heard. You're making sure that you're participating in the democratic process. And not just the democratic process, but in the process in which your lives are going to be governed by. I tell you what, I get excited all the time around this time period, Marvin, because, politics is my lifeblood. I love the policy. I love the law. I love politics. But more importantly, I love seeing everyday citizens participating in this process because it's important to them, it's important to me, and we know it's going to be important to you. So once again, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this Stay the Water on this October 10th of 2021. All month, we're going to have the Conversation with the Candidate series. So make sure you tune in. And as you tune in, I want you to listen to what the candidates are saying. Listen to where you can find more information about them. Go research and make sure that you make the right decision that you feel is best for you, your community, and our Commonwealth. Because at the end of the day, it's our city, it's our state, it's our country. Once again, I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you for joining us on Stay the Water, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you. Join us next week. Until then, be well. God bless.